Hello, I'm Bud McCord. I'm here in Brazil, South America. We've begun this past week on a Monday, a study in 1 John. And today it's the end of the week on Friday. And I want to use Fridays during this study to ask very practical questions. What have we learned so far? And what can we do with what we have learned? We started our week listening to the words of the Apostle John, who was trying to bring this church that he had invested so much time and love in back to full joy in Jesus Christ. False teachers had come into the church, and he sets himself the goal of bringing these people back to what they knew, who they are, and what they have in Jesus Christ. We began listening to these words, that which was from the beginning, which we have heard, which we have seen with our eyes, which we have looked upon, and our hands have handled, concerning the word of life. The life was manifested, and we have seen and bear witness, and declare to you that eternal life, which was with the Father and was manifested to us, that which we have seen and heard we declare to you, that you also may have fellowship with us. And truly our fellowship is with the Father and with his Son, Jesus Christ. And these things we write to you, that your joy may be full. I want to offer to you a picture about a ministry that perhaps that you could be a part of. It's a ministry of returning Christians to full joy in Jesus Christ. To full joy in Jesus Christ. You know, it is no accident that this book is in the Bible. Every single book that is in the Bible has a very, very, very specific role to play for all of us as Christians to have access to the history of God's love, beginning in the Garden of Eden, even before the beginning of what we see to this day. The Bible gives us this beautiful, inspired, perfect inspiration to see what God has done to keep us alive spiritually and to perfect our love in and through Jesus Christ. So it's no accident. It is no accident. And one of the things that it calls my attention to is every church can have problems. And any Christian can come under the sway and the power of a false teacher. If this could happen in a church that had been discipled by the Apostle John, this could happen in your church or my church, in my family or in your family. And so this book is not just a story that we can pass away. What's going on in this book, what we are learning about in this book, in this study, is what can happen in any group of believers, in any place, in any world. People can get under the power of false teachers, and it happens everywhere. Now, I want to encourage you to consider, as a part of the way that you love other people, as being a part of a very distinct kind of ministry, and that is identifying people that you love who are already under the power of false teaching. And that would include the internet, that would include all kinds of people who've been taken away from the church. There's an epidemic around the world of Christians leaving the church. Now, I'm not talking about telling people to go back to Sunday school. I'm not talking about telling people to go to a church attendance. I'm talking about doing what John does, take these people back to Jesus. The only person who can bring these people back to full joy and then fellowship is Jesus Christ. Back in 1995, Pam and I passed through an experience at the First Baptist Church of West Hollywood, where I was pastor for 18 years. But in 1995, in a crisis of that particular ministry and my own ministry, I began to understand that God was calling me to take people back to the purity of Jesus. It seems to me that since Jesus began in this world among us, and where John says we saw him full of grace and truth, that religion And institutions many times put things on top of Jesus that should never touch Jesus. They put teachings on top of Jesus and what he said. They put programs on top of what Jesus is and what he said, so that we get confused about the fact that Jesus is Christianity. Now, if you want to live a wonderful ministry opportunity, Pam and I have been living this ministry now while pastoring and as missionaries, of taking people back to joy, taking people back to Jesus, stripping away everything else and only focusing on Jesus Christ. And if you want that kind of a ministry, I think that's a ministry that is described here in this book of 1 John. It is a ministry of loving people that you've already loved, already care about, and helping bring them back to joy. Now, if you do this, and if you begin to do this, then you're going to have to know the person, and you need to know what they already know. You need to know what they already have, and you need to know who they actually are. And you need to really know the person. I think it's a ministry for moms and dads, grandparents. It's a ministry for pastors. I have enjoyed this part of my ministry over the last 17 years here in Brazil, and then 10 years. So it's like 27 years now that my fundamental ministry, even when I'm preaching or I'm counseling or planting a church or anything else I'm doing, I'm always on the lookout for people that have come under the power of false teaching, and people who have come under the power of false prophets, or people who have been drawn away from Jesus back into the world. And I make it a mission of my life to pray for those people because I love them. These can be people that are in your own family. These can be people that they may be your own grandchildren. They may be people in your church that once were very active and they're no longer active. It could be for leaders. You could pray this prayer for leaders in your country where you live. And if you will take this upon you to understand that the only thing that can bring a cure back to a church that is sick, or a cure back to an individual life in a person who is away from God, if you will embrace this and start with prayer, and then think about the history of the person, who they are, what they know, what they have, and every opportunity you have, don't badger them, don't criticize them, don't make taking them back to the church your first goal. Show them Jesus. Show them Jesus. Help them remember that at one time they saw Jesus clearly. They heard Jesus clearly. They loved Jesus deeply. Maybe you have the gift of evangelism. You start with people who are lost in the darkness of the world. You still start taking them back to Jesus. That's the only thing you can do to help somebody to come from darkness to light. And I want to encourage you to do this. Pick people you love and with whom you have credibility. People you love and with whom you have credibility, or you have someone else who has credibility, will help you to get into a relationship with these people. I'll give you an example. On this past Monday, Pam and I spent 4 hours with a wonderful, wonderful couple, and they have this ministry of taking people back to Jesus. Pam and I have identified over 40 couples that we have influenced and helped disciple into this kind of a ministry of taking people back to Jesus. Not necessarily back to the institution. Don't make that the starting place. It's so easy for people to criticize an institution because of its weaknesses and its failures. What we're talking about is helping people to go back and see Jesus. That which we have seen ourselves, that which we have heard ourselves, and we take people back to Jesus. I think that's why this particular book is in the Bible. To show us how to take people back to their first love, to take them back and take them out of the darkness or where they have been deceived or they're deceiving themselves, whatever it may be. This could be your grandchildren, as I have said. This could be the children that you watch growing up in your neighborhood and you just know that they're away. And then ask Jesus specifically to give you opportunities to simply try to divert their attention back to Jesus, not to you, back to Jesus. As we have done this together, Pam and I, for the last 27 years, it's not an easy ministry, and not everybody comes back. But when they come back, they come back ready to be useful in God's kingdom again. Give that some thought. And so we end this first 5 studies of the First John affirming that he got it right. And he got it right because he loved these people, and he just refused to believe that they were going to go all the way away from Jesus. So he did what he could to bring them back to Jesus. Think on that. Make a list of 5 or 6 or 7 people, maybe it's your own family, and just begin the process through prayer and watch God orchestrate opportunities for you to speak into those lives about Jesus. God bless you.